In the fall of 1943, legend says that a grotesque experiment took place in the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard. While on berth, cannon-class destroyer escort USS Eldridge abruptly disappeared along with its 200 crew members. As America got involved in World War II, the brightest minds of the era, including Albert Einstein, were at work trying to develop new technology that could give them an edge over their enemies. It's said that in an attempt to render their ships invisible, the U.S. Navy created a powerful device that ended up teleporting an entire vessel. USS Eldridge seemed to vanish from thin air, but then she reappeared with terrible consequences for her sailors, or so the story goes. Invisibility. According to several theories, the Philadelphia Shipyard was chosen to be the location of the so-called Philadelphia Experiment, a continuation of the obscure Navy project codenamed Project Rainbow. By using concepts from Einstein's relativity theories, along with electromagnetism and gravity, the U.S. Navy sought to gain unparalleled leverage upon German submarines. They were trying to achieve invisibility. On July 22, 1943, the first trial of the new electrical field manipulation technology was allegedly executed with partial success. A greenish fog supposedly surrounded the testing vessel, which then disappeared. The crew on board are said to have developed mental disorders and physical alterations. 3 months later, on October 28th, a second test with recalibrations and adjustments reputedly sought to clarify the possibility of disappearing the vessel for a longer period. It's said that moments before evaporating, the sailors on board fainted or were fulminated. The USS Eldridge incident was different. She supposedly became invisible, but didn't disappear at first. Instead, the ship's presence could actually be appreciated through the water's surface. But suddenly those water traces disappeared, and it's said that the ship reintegrated at another base in Norfolk, Virginia, over 300 miles away. The story also indicates that the ship reappeared in Norfolk 15 minutes before it vanished from Philadelphia. The vessel then reappeared in Philadelphia, but this time with terrible consequences. It's said that several crew members developed schizophrenia or completely lost their minds, but also that many actually rematerialized and were fused into the ship's steel hull. Chasing the story. Witnesses who claim to have seen the fantastic event ominously described the screams from the sailors aboard Eldridge, and it's said that the incident prompted the Navy to drop the endeavor altogether. The legend continued to grow as seaman Carl Meredith Allen, under the pseudonym Carlos Miguel Allende, contacted writer Morris Jessup. Allen was said to be on board SS Andrew Furseth when the event happened. An astronomer and ufologist, Jessup was struggling to make a living out of writing when this incredible tale fell on his hands. Allen wrote him about 50 letters relating everything that he had seen. He assured Jessup he had been a student of Albert Einstein and understood the unified field theory. He claimed that Einstein was always trying to understand how physical phenomena interacted with each other, especially electromagnetism, gravity, and the strong and weak forces. Allen then assured Jessup that the theory worked and that he had seen it that day in Norfolk, but he was the only person who claimed to have observed the episode. Jessup eventually followed through with an investigation of his own, but didn't find any reliable evidence. Still, he included the Philadelphia Experiment story in his book The Case for the UFO in 1955. By 1957, the Navy's Office of Naval Research approached the writer with a curious inquiry. They had received one of Jessup's books, but while looking inside, they had found annotations from 3 different people, including, maybe, an alien. The notes included descriptions of extraterrestrial technology and divagations regarding the unified field theory. It's likely that Allen wrote these scribblings himself, but strangely enough, the Office of Naval Research actually published 127 copies of the book with the annotations. In 1959, Jessup was depressed after his second book didn't perform as expected and his wife left him, so he called a friend and told him he had made a breakthrough on the experiment. The next day, April 20th, 1959, Jessup's body was found in his car. Someone had connected a hose from the exhaust pipe to the rear window while the engine was running. The official verdict was that Jessup took his own life, but many people believe he was silenced. In contrast, Allen lived a long life. Before passing away in 1994, he confessed that the whole thing had been a hoax, but later changed his mind and affirmed that everything was true. Over half a century later, Allen is still regarded as a disturbed and unstable individual at best, or a publicity seeker at worst. However, several people are convinced that his story was true, even as the Navy has gone to great lengths to calm the public and explicitly deny any experiments about teleportation. But the story doesn't end here. Witnesses. In 1984, a movie called The Philadelphia Experiment was released. 4 years later, a man named Al Bielek watched the film and claimed that the film unearthed repressed memories in him about the time he was on board USS Eldridge. Bielek claimed that when Eldridge disappeared, he was on board, but in another man's body. He also said that he traveled in time to the year 2137 with that man's brother, and added that he had been to Mars and to the 28th century. In 1994, researcher Jacques Vallée explained that during the 1940s, the Navy performed several experiments to try and make ships invisible. He said that a process called degaussing was developed to protect ships against U-boat threats and underwater magnetic mines. He detailed how a vessel was wrapped in electrical cables that rendered the ship invisible to the mines. This factor could explain the reported electrical fog that witnesses perceived during the alleged first experiments. Vallée also cited Edward Dudgeon, a Navy veteran who had served in World War II on USS Engstrom. Dudgeon explained that the incident had been highly exaggerated and that Eldridge sailed to Norfolk to gather supplies and then returned to Philadelphia in less than 6 hours. The story could be plausible if the ship used the Chesapeake and Delaware Canal to dodge enemy submarines, giving the appearance of teleportation. Nevertheless, official records and testimonies from Eldridge's crew affirmed that the ship wasn't even in Philadelphia, but in Brooklyn at the time of the supposed sighting. And the Office of Naval Research stated in 1996 that, quote, ONR has never conducted investigations on radar invisibility, either in 1943 or at any other time. They also pointed out that the organization was not established until 1946, discrediting the original timeline. If something odd did happen that day, the fantastic tale could be the result of decades of hearsay. Nevertheless, many people still believe that the so-called experiment could be a cover-up, and that there's some sort of conspiracy roaming below the surface. Thank you for watching our video. Let us know in the comments below whether you believe the official explanation, or if you think something darker was going on. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more unique content.